Hello and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be checking out a fuzz pedal that you might have already seen if you've seen my £100 cash converters video. It's a pedal from a brand that I've not really touched before in the past, and we'll get into the reasons for that in just a second. But it's also a pedal that so far I've had a pretty good experience with. I am of course talking about the Behringer Super Fuzz SF300. So before we get into the pedal, I just want to talk a little bit about Behringer as a whole. Now I'm sure a lot of you will be familiar with the company, as it's quite hard to miss them if you're going pedal shopping at any of the major retailers in the UK, Europe or America. And it's quite hard to miss them because of their really low prices. Now the reason they're able to offer these prices is because, well, A, they're a huge company and they have a massive amount of manufacturing resource over in China. B, because these effects and pedals do cut corners in certain places, which we'll discuss in a minute. And C, and really the main reason for me that I've avoided them thus far, is the fact that almost all of these pedals are pretty much straight copies of other pedals. Now this is something that has been raised as questionable ethics on certain forums. If you go on somewhere like Reddit, you'll see people debating it quite a lot. And for me, as someone who works in engineering and R&D, it doesn't really sit quite right with me, and that's why thus far I've stayed away from them. That is until now when I've picked up this Super Fuzz, but I'd just like to point out that I did buy this second hand, so no money has changed hands from me to Behringer. But I think that's quite a nice segue into this pedal, because this video isn't about Behringer's questionable business practices, this is about the SF300 Super Fuzz. So as I mentioned a minute ago, a lot of these pedals are copies, and the SF300 is no exception to that. So the SF300 is a clone of the Boss FZ2 Hyper Fuzz, which itself in turn was loosely based on the design of the Univox Super Fuzz, although it wasn't a direct copy and does a few different things. But this is more or less a direct copy of that Boss pedal. So looking at the controls, you've got a level, you've then got a 2-band EQ, so treble and bass, and then you've got your fuzz control, as well as a 3-way switch. This switch lets you switch between fuzz modes 1 and 2, as well as a boost setting. So let's hear how it sounds. Today I'm playing my Gretsch G2655, which has been upgraded with Mojotron, Filtertron style pickups. I'm then playing through the fuzz obviously and into my Vox AC15, which clean sounds like this. And then with the fuzz engaged, sounds like this. So that's on fuzz mode 1 and with the gain at 12 o'clock. Now I'll roll the gain control back to about 9 o'clock, but you'll hear that really the fuzz doesn't roll off a whole lot, it's kind of fuzz or more fuzz. So with the gain control at about 9 o'clock it sounds like this. So there is certainly less fuzz in there, but it's still not getting anywhere close to being particularly clean. If you want to get really distorted, you can go the other way. So if I turn the gain control up to about 3 o'clock, it sounds something like this. So as you can hear, it will get into really doomy territory as well. Now I'm just going to put the gain back to about 12 o'clock just to demonstrate, because this is an octave fuzz, so especially once you get up here past the sort of 12th fret area, you start to really hear that upper octave. Should note that that's also why I'm on the neck pickup, because for whatever reason you get more of that upper octave when you're using the neck pickup over the bridge pickup. So just to demonstrate what that sounds like when you get into the upper register. Which to me immediately brings something like Jack White to mind. I know he didn't actually use an octave fuzz, it was a POG going into a fuzz, but it's still that kind of vibe. So that's a quick look at the fuzz 1 setting. So I'm now going to switch over to the fuzz 2 setting, and what that's going to give us is a much more scooped, bass heavy, and I guess slightly more modern sounding fuzz. So on fuzz 2, it sounds something like this. So that should give you some idea of what Fuzz 2 sounds like. Really, it's just a different sounding EQ curve when compared to Fuzz 1, which is a lot more of a mid boost, whereas Fuzz 2, as I said a minute ago, is more of a mid cut and a bass boost. So the final option on the switch is boost, and as you'd expect, it's just a fairly standard sounding boost. So that's with the boost on, and just for reference, if I switch it off quickly. And back on. So nothing really to write home about, not the best sounding boost, but it's just a boost and it's there if you need it. But really, obviously, this pedal was about the fuzz. And for me personally, at least, Fuzz 1 is by far my favourite. So that's a quick look at how the pedal sounds, and as you can probably hear, I mean, I think it sounds pretty damn good, especially when you consider the price. But for that price, there's got to be a downside, hasn't there? And for me, it's just the build quality of the pedal. It's not like your regular Boss pedals that have got a really nice solid metal case. This pedal's just got a cheap plastic casing, and I have read reports online that especially if you're gigging them, these don't last particularly well. So now we come on to the tricky question of should you buy one? For me, I think a lot of it depends on where you stand on Behringer as a whole. But that aside, I mean, especially if you just want to try the sort of Univox Super Fuzz FZ2 kind of sound, then sure, it's cheap, it's almost disposable. Not that I'm encouraging that, it not being metal, that's plastic waste. But if you just want to try that sound or use it in the studio very occasionally, then I can definitely see it being useful. And in all fairness to Behringer, the Boss pedal in question is quite hard and expensive to get your hands on these days, so it is a cheap way into those sounds. For me, I've really enjoyed this circuit, and so for me, I think I am going to try and get my hands on the proper Boss pedal at some point because I've really enjoyed it, and I think it's a great sound, and especially in the £100 video actually, I found myself really enjoying it through that little cheap amp. I think it's definitely going to get some use at some point in some of my music. But that's it for today, so all that's left for me to say is thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.